like looking back, it wasn't about becoming myself. It was like becoming who I needed to be to fit in the different environments that I was in. So whether that be school, I was a dancer for a very long time. So in that environment, I learned to just smile and perform, which, again, there's like a light and shadow of that because it's lovely to be able to, like, when I talk on stage now or speaking, I really enjoy it. And so I have that, but I have to be really careful that it's not performance. Like, where is Keri in this? That there's authenticity, because a lot of what I learned was to be safe in the world, I had to perform. I had to figure out who am I supposed to be, radar in on that, and then do it. And so there was like this conflict, like it feels like my stomach always hurt and I didn't know why. And it was like, oh, well, now I know, because it's painful to not be yourself in the world.
Hi, I'm Biz Cush, a life coach and therapist, and your host here on the Awaken Your Wise Woman podcast. We're talking to women all over the world who found their way back to themselves, to their inner knowing, to their intuition, to their wisest self. We're exploring how to feel alive, authentic, engaged, and fully present in your life. Let's awaken your wise woman. Hi, and welcome back to the Awaken Your Wise Woman podcast. I'm your host, Biz Cush, and I'm super excited that you're here. My guest this week is fabulous. We've got Keri Nola back on the podcast, and it felt really important to have her back. She was one of the first guests that we had when we shifted from the Woman Warriors format to the Awaken Your Wise Woman format. So it's really nice to have her back as we're really hyper-focusing on high sensitivity, our gifts, our challenges, what it brings to our life and our work, and how we can live a more aligned existence with our sensitivities intact, with compassion and care. And so I think what I really took away from our conversation was just how when we are feeling aligned, when we are in tune with our sensitivities, it helps us navigate the world more efficiently, more easily. We are attracting the energies that fill us up and avoiding or creating boundaries around those energies that don't. And to me, that has been such a valuable lesson in my life, is that like recognizing that there are people, places, events, things that really sort of tip my balance, make it so that I feel less aligned. I don't feel like I am attuned to myself. And so just hearing Keri share her story about how her sensitivities have really enhanced her life in many ways, even though sometimes it can feel like a burden to be highly sensitive. I think the overall message is really beautiful, that as we embrace those things, those sensitivities about ourselves, it just helps us be better in the world with ourselves. So here we go. We're going to jump in and talk to Keri. If you missed this round of group for highly sensitive women that I was offering, don't worry. Another group will be offered in January. So keep your eyes and ears open for that. And if you want to be sure that you're staying in touch, you can find me on Instagram at Awaken Your Wise Woman, or you can jump on my newsletter subscription and you'll get the podcast delivered to your inbox as well as my newsletter once a month. And so you can find that at elizabethcushcoaching.com. And there's a form right there at the bottom of the page where you could sign up for the newsletter. Hi, Keri, and welcome to the Awaken Your Wise Woman podcast.
Hey, Biz, it's so good to be back.
I know. Well, it's funny because you were one of the first guests for the transition from Woman Warriors podcast to the Awaken Your Wise Woman podcast. And I feel like it's so appropriate to have you back, that the season that we're talking about high sensitivity. And this is kind of a new direction for me to have a season really hyper focused on a topic. So, yeah, it's so great to have you here. And as I was sharing a little bit before we started recording, yeah, even though I feel like I know you pretty well and we have a relationship outside of this through, you coaching me but yeah, I was a little nervous to have you on the podcast for some reason. It's funny how our parts do that.
Totally. Yeah. It's, they don't discriminate any experience. They will be here. Are we okay? Are we safe? And so
Exactly. Exactly.
I love how you name that and normalize it
Right.
for us.
Well, I think there's this part of me that's like, I want this to be perfect. I don't want to, well, I don't want to embarrass myself. There's that. But I want it, yeah, for whatever reason, for you. I just want this to be perfect. So there you go.
Oh. Oh, I love the intention that you want this to be a good experience for me and for us. And I want that too. And I've never had an imperfect or an unperfect experience with you in all the years we've been
Mm,
relating, even in the moments of humaning and fumbling, however that looks. So just so you know, I am so available for the humaning together, whatever that wants to look like. I don't have any expectations other than to be with you for this time and to chat
nice,
honestly.
nice, nice. Well, thank you for that. So, for the listeners who maybe have not heard us chat on the podcast before, maybe you could share a little bit about yourself and the work that you do.
Sure. So, I was formerly a licensed psychotherapist for almost 15 years, had a practice specializing in complex trauma using integrative, holistic, somatic methods for healing, and just adored that work so much. However, my soul was really calling me toward another season. And for the last 7 or 8 years, I've been coaching, mentoring, guiding healers and helpers in clearing what needs to be cleared inside of them so that they can be vessels for the work that they're here to provide. And I do that through mentoring sessions and my membership community Receptivity Portal and through retreats and events and courses and sometimes podcasts and however the divine calls me to use my voice and my work. And I think what's different about me is that I really have divorced myself from the go, 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 hustle and grind perspective. I found that to be very challenging for my nervous system. And as I admitted that for myself, I found that there was a whole community of other healers and helpers who also wanted a gentle and true path toward becoming who they are and sharing and serving in the ways that they were meant to share and serve. So I've moved away from the
Mm,
formulas and the 5 step plans and the cookie cutter approaches and really just devoting myself and inviting others to devote themselves to the journey and how can we efficiently and effectively navigate the journey so that our nervous system doesn't pay a very expensive price for the money that we make, for the ways that we help. And that helps me sleep at night to be aligned in the way that I am in my personal life with my business life as well.
mm. Well, and so much so, just for the audience to know, I've been a part of your receptivity portal and the healer circle and one on one work with you. And so much of what I appreciate in the work that you bring to the work is that, you're very intuitive. You're very aligned energetically with what's happening, both, I feel like, in the universe, but also with the people that show up to work together. And I'm wondering, I mean, to me, it seems clear that your sensitivity assists with that, but maybe talk a little bit about that if that feels right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because, my sensitivity, I used to really curse it. It felt like such a negative thing because it made navigating the world so hard. I spent the first many years of my life, my school age years in particular, not understanding anything about being a sensitive soul in a not very sensitive world. And I had all kinds of anxiety and panic attack. And I remember like puking every day before school. My little body just couldn't tolerate the intensity of these environments and the rules and the schedules and just the rigidity. Like I just wasn't built for it. So I always knew that I would work for myself. And one of the things that I love about being an entrepreneur is that I get to design my schedule and the type of work that I do and the clients that I serve in a way that honors my sensitivity, which I now, just to be clear, see and know as a beautiful gift.
Mm,
And
yeah.
so, yes, I mean, my sensitivity helps me to, because I honor that within myself, it makes room for me to see and sense and honor and really introduce others to their sensitivity because many people don't recognize that it's there. There's so many layers of armor and protection between them and their essence that they've lost sight of it. So I see my relationship with my own sensitivity as a way to be able to mirror back and remind others, like, hey, do you see
Mm.
her? Do you see him? That little precious, light and softness and truth that's flickering in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I feel like because of your energy and sensitivity and just what you bring to the work that you do, at least in my experience, it attracts others who are also highly sensitive. And so to me, that's something that I think more recently surprised me is I think as I embrace my sensitivity and really name it and own it and allow it to be there, I do find it is bringing in others that are also highly
Yeah,
sensitive.
like a little magnet, right? We start to attract, ooh, there's my person, ooh, there's my group, there's my people. I think that is really
Yeah.
beautiful. And so often I think our relationships are tumultuous because we have this facade on. So those who are like us or that vibrate and want to create life and relationships in similar ways have a hard time finding us because we're not being us. We're like, we have all of this between
Mm,
us and them. So I love that you say that. Like as we deepen in knowing ourselves, we become magnetic to more aligned experiences and opportunities and people. I've definitely found that.
yeah, yeah, me too. And you said that in the past, your sensitivity was not something that you treasured or felt so warm and fuzzy about. What was that like growing up? Just really maybe not even understanding that it was just a part of you, but also, yeah, just what was that like navigating the world?
It was very scary. I think like I was just terrified trying to figure out why I didn't seem to fit. Like why who I be isn't really, the puzzle piece. I can't find where I fit. And
Mhm.
I thought that meant, of course, at that age and stage that there was something bad or wrong about me or what I was doing because it wasn't occurring to me that it could be the world that's confused or, these adults who haven't done their own work to discover, the truth of their own sensitivity or to be able to even ask questions or give resources for me. So it was very scary. Like I spent a lot of time like looking back, it wasn't about becoming myself. It was like becoming who I needed to be to fit in the different environments that I was in. So whether that be school, I was a dancer for a very long time. So in that environment, I learned to just smile and perform. which, again, there's like a light and shadow of that because it's lovely to be able to, like, when I talk on stage now or speaking, I really enjoy it. And so I have that, but I have to be really careful that it's not performance. Like, where is Keri in this? That there's authenticity, because a lot of what I learned was to be safe in the world, I had to perform. I had to figure out who am
Mm,
I supposed to be, radar in on that, and then do it. And so there was like this
yeah.
conflict, like it feels like my stomach always hurt and I didn't know why. And it was like, oh, well, now I know, because it's painful to not be yourself in the world.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I can so relate to that. And just sort of always feeling this sense of like difference and not feeling like I could fully show up the way, maybe I didn't even know how to because there was so much armor. Yeah. Yeah.
It's reminding me too that, if you talk to anyone who knew me in my childhood, they would probably tell you that I was very bossy. One of the ways that
Mm.
I dealt with my sensitivity, one of my pieces of armor was to be controlling and in charge. So it's like if we were playing school, I was the teacher. If we were playing house, I was the mom, the dad, the like, I mean, I was just all of it. I remember we used to play like the grocery store, we'd take the cans out and we'd like make the beeping noise. And I was always the cashier, I was the manager. So I have so much empathy for that part now, but it made relating with my peers very challenging because I didn't have a lot of
Mm.
space for them because I was so scared. And the only way I felt safe was to like control all the little pieces of everything that I was doing. I didn't really know how to play because I didn't feel safe enough to let go and like actually enjoy anything.
Just be in it.
Makes me
Yeah.
a good entrepreneur now. I can lead well, but I've had to refine those skills. So it's not all bad, but it's just, yeah, it's just so
Yeah.
interesting and sweet to look back and to be able to
Oh, well,
embrace those
yeah, I was gonna
parts.
of course. Well, and right, to be able to laugh and appreciate those parts for what they brought forth for you, but also I would say that you have learned to lead in a much different way these days, right?
Much.
With the groups that I'm a part of, but yeah, I would say I was always whatever you want me to be. That was my
Yeah.
Do I need to be the clerk? No, no. Or do you need me to be the customer? Okay, I could do that,
We would have
that
been
sort of
good
people
friends,
pleasing.
Biz. It was almost
Yes,
like with
right.
the adults, I was like, who do you need me to be? Sometimes I had a rebellious spark, but then with my peers, it felt like, oh, now I can take charge or practice that being in control or being, yeah, had a little bit of both.
Yeah. Yeah. And when did the relationship with your sensitivity or sensitive traits, like when did that shift for you and what brought that about?
So, as I was becoming a therapist in my early 20s, I was on a deep journey of my own work, wanting to understand my anxiety and why life, so many facets of it were just so scary because I didn't have any big T traumas that would be like, oh, well, that makes sense. That happened at this. It was like, no, there was just this chronic undertone of like not feeling safe in the world, but there wasn't some identifying factor. So I would say my journey started in my early to mid 20s as I began a lot of therapy, but it probably wasn't until my 30s or, yeah, probably early 30s that I started having more real empathy, compassion. I think of reading like Tara Brach's Radical Acceptance. I remember a therapist gave that to me and I just like
Mm,
threw it across the room. I was like, what is this? Like, I just wasn't ready. I couldn't even look at it, accept it. I just,
mm,
yeah, I just didn't have the skills yet. And then there was a day when I was just ready to pick it up and it really had an impact on me. Like, oh, there's actually exercises and ways that I can presence these different aspects of me. And parts work really had a big impact on that too, because it wasn't like it got less confusing when I could identify this part and the different needs and stories. And it felt like there was a map out of this really confusing place that I didn't understand or have any reference for before that.
mm. Yeah. Yeah. It's lovely. And Tara Brach's work is amazing. I love listening to her meditations. And for you, how has your sensitivity really shaped your work that you do today? And even did it influence that shift from therapist, entrepreneur to coach and energy healer? And yeah.
Very much. I think one of the aspects of sensitivity, that one of the ways that sensitivity shows up for me is in my body. And so if I'm ignoring something, my body lets me know. And when I was ignoring the soul's call to move from therapist to, mentor and guide, and to move from Florida to California and just start a new life, I was ignoring that. So my body began to break down, just pain and
Mm,
symptoms, and nothing could get diagnosed physically. And, one of my mentors at the time said, I think this is more of a spiritual dilemma. Are you going to answer your soul's call or not? And
wow.
I felt like I was dying, like there were heart palpitations and but everything was fine with the physical heart. There was no answers that could be given. And, one of my mentors said, I do think you're dying to this aspect of life, to this part of you, to this
Mm,
identity that you have trapped yourself in. And there's more to you than that. And that really, I was resistant for a long time to that. But then when I started listening, it helped me to decide that, yes, I do want to answer this call and I do want to make this shift. And I think my sensitivity helps me to create, like, be present to my own nervous system, but then to realize the nervous system that collectively gets created when I'm working with another individual or with a group. Sometimes we can't really see ourselves. And so the feedback that I often get over the years is like, I've heard the words like, your spaces are gently powerful. Like there's a
mm,
gentle power. And I think that's how my sensitivity is infused. It's like, because I can read the room, because I can feel the space, there's a way that I'm able to hold it, to organize it. Yeah, that allows it to be less chaotic, dramatic. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I think about, again, like the people that you draw in. Like, I don't ever think of the spaces that I've been in with you as either dramatic or chaotic, but also, too, the gentleness of your message around entrepreneuring, right? And marketing. It's like we, I think for so many highly sensitive people, like that push marketing, the in your face, like, I'm going to be everywhere you see me on social media. I'm going to be emailing you once a week. I'm going to be in your face. I know for me anyway, it just feels so
Yeah.
unaligned. And so, sort of that permission to trust yourself and do it the way I need to, or whoever else it is that may be in your work with you. Yeah, to do it in a way that works for them. And that feels so, that I feel like that really shifted how I work
Mhm.
and put myself out there.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love knowing that. It's like that permission slip feels really important. And we have to know what
Hmm.
permissions our sensitivity need. And if we're not in relationship with our sensitivity, then it's hard to know what is the way that my life, my business is asking to be organized so that I do experience as much gentleness as possible. Because let's face it, the world is harsh. It's intense. There are lessons and experiences and circumstances that do fall outside our realm of control, but how we choose to take care of ourselves through those and how we identify what we need, that really has a big impact and it matters. And as I mature, I get clearer and clearer for myself. And that helps me to attract the people that want that and
Right.
that
Right.
can meet us there. Yeah, it's so interesting because I don't know that I've thought of it like this in terms of my relationship to my sensitivity and the role that it's played. So this is fun for me to even think of it like this. I love your questions.
Nice, nice, nice. Well, I love that you love my
Yeah.
questions. Um, well, and so for you, what would be today? What's the hardest part of being highly sensitive? And on the flip side, what do you treasure most about
Mm.
it?
The hardest part is the way that I can't avoid life coming at me in a way that, because my system is open and sensitive and soft and available, and because I'm committed to keeping it that way, that means that I feel all of it.
Mm.
And it's a lot to feel. I remember years ago, I was producing the Vagina Monologues at my university, and I got the opportunity to meet with Eve Ensler, the playwright. And she said, if all of us were really present, we would be sobbing like 24 hours a day because this life is hard and there's a lot of suffering and pain and struggle. And that's what I think of. It's
Mm.
just like it's like all these little like cuts, and like I feel every intent good thing and every bad thing and every easy thing and every hard thing. It's a lot.
Yeah,
And I would say
yeah.
that same thing is also the thing that I treasure, because the more available that I am to feel all of it, the more like connected I am to the breath of life and to the flow of life and to the enoughness of life. The more I can connect with the people that I care about, the more I can realize that we are all connected.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's kind of a double-edged sword, and it's like how to manage that, and how to remember the resources and the practices that help me hold the tension of feeling all of that
Mhm.
life coming at me.
Yeah.
Like I don't drink, and I don't use any drugs. And if you look around, like most people survive life by being addicted to something, because it's a lot, and we want to, if we don't have the skills, we have to numb it some way. And I
Yeah.
know that I'm numbing, or that it's been a lot for me when I start reaching for I'm scrolling. That's my addiction. It's just checking out, numbing,
Yes.
scrolling. And
Oh,
it's not always
I
bad, but
see.
it's like, oh, that's interesting. I'm feeling a lot
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've noticed that too. And I know for a long time for myself, I probably used alcohol as, or back in my youth, other drugs, probably, pot and things like that, marijuana, whatever you want to call it. But I think that when we begin, yes, to feel more aligned, but also to notice that, oh, I'm feeling a lot, like I'm taking in a lot, finding ways to really take care of myself versus numb.
Mhm.
Yeah. What would be I don't know if you have a go-to, like what helps you sort of reset, recharge, really protect your energy, I guess, in a way.
Well,
Yeah.
I have energy clearing and shielding practices that I start and end my day with, and use it in between clients or in between the day if things are feeling intense. So that to me is kind of like brushing my teeth. It's like I just do it because I know that I'm designed like a sponge and I collect a lot of energy. So
Mhm.
energetically, there's those kind of rituals, but also it's who I talk to and keep in my life. I have a couple of very close friends that we're on each other's radar, and we're checking in. It's like if
Mm.
it's an intense day, if it's there's communication, there's connection, there's remembering that I'm not by myself in this. And also movement. I find even like a gentle walk, getting out in nature, feeling the breeze. I'm blessed to live in San Diego, that most time of the year we can comfortably be outside and enjoy
Yeah.
nature. I
Yes.
also have a practice I've been using for a few years now that I really like. Many of you may be familiar with the shaking practice, like shaking the nervous system,
Mhm.
but I have a device called the Hyper Vibe, and I stand on it. It's like a vibrating plate, and it
Oh, wow.
vibrates at different like levels and intensities. And I just breathe, and it literally just like shakes from my system, like all the stuff.
Mm.
And sometimes I just do it physically, but most of the time I'm also thinking of what I'm releasing, what I'm shaking off, like imagining it kind of leaving the different parts of my body where I might be holding tension or tightness. And it's like a 15-minute little program. And then when I get off, whew, it just feels like a little reset.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, there's so much evidence around movement and shaking and moving that energy through us, that what's more negative energy through us or negative experiences. So that's lovely. I love that.
Mhm.
So, if people wanted to know more about you and how to find you, how did they do that?
Sure. Well, I think the biggest opportunity to play with me right now is the Receptivity Portal, and it's just receptivity-portal.com. And
Mm,
I'm finding that working individually is beautiful, but the community element has been so sacred and special. A lot of times because I'm talking to people one on one and they're saying a lot of the same things that other people are saying, and they're thinking they're the only one. And I'm like, oh, you should meet so and so because we just had the same conversation. So I'm loving the growth of our community with the most aligned and just special souls who are really committed to being receptive to life and having a nervous system that's capable of handling life as it's lifing. And yeah, and then also
yeah.
kerinola.com has other things. And that, yeah, I'm rebranding that right now. So she's not a full, she doesn't match my current expression the way that I want her to, but you know, always
She's
a
not
work
in
in
full
progress.
flower yet. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah,
She's a bud.
exactly. Exactly.
Well, it was so fun and always enjoyable to be with you virtually and maybe someday in person. But yeah, it was so fun to talk to you today. And I just appreciate your coming on the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me, and thank you for your commitment to honoring your own sensitivity and reminding us to do the same. I feel like it's such an important conversation, and we need to be having it more and more.
It was so great to have Keri back on the podcast. As I mentioned during our conversation, I've done a lot of group work with her and one on one work with her. And I just knew that her sensitive energy would align with what I had hoped this season would cover, but this season would energetically be just a very gentle, compassionate conversation around what it's like to be highly sensitive, what it's like to be a highly sensitive person on this journey in life, but also business. And just her metaphor of how life can and all the stimulus that we encounter throughout our lives, whether it's other people's emotions or things that are happening in the world or things that are happening to us in our community or wherever it might be, it almost feels like cuts, right? Like that we're taking in those feelings and wounds. And that can be our gift, right? That can be our superpower that we can experience and hold others in their experience so kindly and gently and with compassion because we know what it's like. And we can attune to others so deeply, others who are also highly sensitive, but also those who are not, that we can go deep fast. And yeah, I just really appreciated her energy here and her willingness to share a little bit about herself. So I hope you'll check out her stuff if you have any interest in being a part of her world. I love her Instagram posts, so you can find her on Instagram too, Keri Nola. And yeah, I hope you will come back for another round of the podcast when we're back here. I look forward to connecting with you next time, right here on the Awaken Your Wise Woman podcast. Thanks for listening to the Awaken Your Wise Woman podcast. The information in this podcast is not a substitute for seeking help from a licensed mental health professional. Music by Andy Cush, sound editing by Laura Disler, and show notes by Kathy Cush. If you'd like more information about me, Biz Cush, and the resources shared today, go to awakenyourwisewoman.com.